listening to LYNC Radio. I'm Jessica Eturralde. In this special episode of LYNC Radio, we're reflecting on our time in Berlin. Recently, Love Your Neighbor community was on the ground in Berlin, Germany, where we co-convened with our partners, the IRF Secretariat and Templeton Religion Trust, to bring you the Berlin Civil Society Program, which, according to the IRF Secretariat's website, brought majority world voices to the global conversation about freedom of religious belief. In our last episode, which was part 1 in this special series, we delved into the unveiling of the IRF Secretariat's new academic council. We unpacked remarks from the Berlin program's opening session and concluded with a review of the event's Eurasian panel. For part 2, we'll look at the panel on the Middle East and North Africa, also known as the MENA region. We'll also explore the IRF Secretariat's new corporate and new media councils. And we'll hear feedback from some of the attendees' takeaways, including a lightning round of notable messages and advice. But first, Love Your Neighbor community has recently launched a new media initiative to broaden conversations between those that believe differently. We know that as a society, we need to work together. And how can we do that if we don't take the time to share and listen to one another? Therefore, we're asking our listeners to like and subscribe to our programs and share it with someone you know who also wants to expand the conversation. You may learn more at lyncommunity.org. Now, turning our attention to the Middle East and North Africa, where the panel focusing on the MENA region and freedom of religion or belief, security, and the misuse of religion and building resilience shed light on critical issues facing these communities. Led by moderator Suzanne Grisham from Mercury One, the discussion underscored the enduring scars left by ISIS in Iraq and Syria, and where religious and ethnic minorities, including Christians and Yazidis, have endured genocide, mass violence, and significant cultural loss.
So 10 years ago, ISIS swept through Iraq and Syria, targeting Syriac, Assyrian, Chaldean Christians, Yazidis, and other religious and ethnic minorities for genocide with mass killings, rapes, abduction, sexual enslavement, forced conversion, and other atrocities.
Despite the military defeat of ISIS in 2019, the Salafists' radical ideology still poses a risk, and local leaders are stepping up to counter these threats. Grisham introduced speakers working on the ground in Iraq and Syria with a focus on building inclusive, resilient societies to guard against future extremism.
بالتأكيد مثل ما تفضلت السيدة سوزان بعد تحرير.
Among them was Mayor Issam Mati from Hamdamiyah, formerly Karakosh, Iraq, who, communicating through a translator in Arabic, shared some insights into the challenges his region faced in rebuilding after the occupation of ISIS. Elected mayor in 2016, Mati oversaw substantial reconstruction efforts, including restoring buildings and fostering social cohesion among diverse religious and ethnic groups. With support from international non-governmental organizations and local churches, his administration led hundreds of infrastructure projects, helping to rebuild schools and health centers and encourage community resilience. Mayor Mati also highlighted the ongoing political struggles minority communities face, including threats of displacement and administrative control by militia leaders, noting that if key community leaders like himself were removed, the impact on religious freedom and security in the Nineveh Plains could be severe. He also mentioned society should be aware that some people in the area support democracy, but do not fully understand what democracy means. The mayor urged the international community to continue supporting local governance and resilience-building efforts so that they can teach and spread these values to their communities in the area, ensuring peaceful coexistence and stability for future generations.
Next, it is my honor to introduce to you Dr. Mirza Dinnayi.
Continuing within the MENA panel, Dr. Mirza Dinnayi, founder of the House of Coexistence in Sinjar, Iraq, and a 2019 Aurora Prize laureate, shared updates on his mission to rehabilitate Yazidi youth impacted by ISIS. His initiative focuses on social inclusion to prevent future violence and cultivate peace. The House of Coexistence serves as a beacon for multiculturalism aimed at rebuilding trust among Sinjar's diverse communities. Dr. Dinnayi also highlighted the pressing need for international support, proposing an international conference to establish self-administered zones for minorities, enhancing their security and integration into regional development. Later, Dinnayi told LYNC that it was important for him to speak at the program to represent his community, one that remains marginalized.
I think because I belong to a community that is unfortunately still marginalized. My community 10 years ago were faced a genocide. That the consequences of this genocide are still there. The Yazidi community, the majority are still in the IDP camps. They didn't have opportunity to go back. The area is unstable. So therefore, it is so important to speak to the audience about the plight of the Yazidi community in Iraq, but also it is just a loop. If you speak about the different minority groups in the region, you will have the same dilemma that internationally and also nationally should be moved in order to protect them, in order to solve their problems.
Dinnayi stressed that now we need, more than any time before, to build an international global platform to bring people together in order to promote peace and understanding among different beliefs, religions, and ethnicities. Returning our focus to the MENA panel, Brikene, Global Director at Hardwired Global, emphasized the transformative role of education in fostering peace and pluralism. Through Hardwired's Human Rights Education Initiative in Iraq's Nineveh Plains, Krasniqi has worked with local organizations to train teachers across 40 schools, nurturing respect and inclusion among students. The program, successful in both Iraq and post-conflict Kosovo, has expanded through collaborations with regional governments, impacting thousands of teachers and students alike. Krasniqi urged for global support to further replicate this adaptable model, underscoring education as a vital tool for lasting peace and resilience in diverse communities. There was also a very important panelist scheduled to speak during the time of this panel, Nazira Goriya, from the Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria, who was not able to attend at the time of the panel due to a flight issue. However, Goriya did graciously speak the following morning, following the program, for those who were still on location. LYNC was unable to capture Goriya's direct comments, but we did receive a statement from her translator and a faithful contributor to the conversation. Rima has a message for our listeners.
Hi, I'm Rima. I'm coming from the Middle Eastern regions, and as you know, in Middle East there are different cultures and religions and ethnic minorities, and we're living all together. So we are neighbors, and our experience is that we don't want anymore to be controlled by any majorities, by any dictatorships, but we really want to create our own future, and we want to establish our own democracy, and it starts all with recognizing each other, accepting each other as a people, as neighbors, and give love to their religion, to their culture. And if we can start as people to help each other, to appreciate each other, we can do more and more, and this is actually what we did. So, for example, in Northeast Syria, we have already a very nice existing model, the Autonomous Administration of Northeast Syria, and I hope we can establish this model in other regions of the Middle East. Thank you.
We will be sure to reach out to Goriya and report more on the work being done through the Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria in the near future. And that wraps up the MENA region panel, highlighting the critical work being done to promote social cohesion and rebuild communities devastated by conflict. We've heard powerful stories from local leaders who are at the forefront of fighting for peace and reconciliation. Up next, we switch gears to the What Needs to Be Done panel. Get ready for a stimulating discussion where experts will merge theory with practice to explore how academic insights can drive real-world actions toward enhancing religious freedom globally. Also up ahead, we have insights from the program's corporate panel, which will inject a shock of energy into innovative approaches to support and strengthen communities worldwide. Stay tuned for more. Love Your Neighbor Community is creating a platform for laborers in the religious freedom building movement to discuss their work, its challenges, wins, and opportunities in order to support the great effort in expanding religious freedom and protecting the marginalized worldwide. None of us can perform this work alone, and LYNC wants to support you through this radio program and our video shows LYNC Talk and LYNC Interview. Will you do us a favor? Help us get the word out so as many as possible can hear and learn of the great work being done for freedom of religious belief. Follow us on social media and be sure to say hi so we can be aware of your updates. Links to our channels will be provided in our show notes. During the first half of the What Needs to Be Done panel, Reverend May Cannon introduced the session as a concise recap of previous discussions on the Council's goals, including integrating academic perspectives with actionable practices for religious freedom. By the way, if you would like to hear our overview of that, refer to Part 1 of this special episode series. You can find LYNC Radio on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify, or visit our website at lyncommunity.org and click on the Media tab. In addition to the recap, the academic portion of the panel focused on the shared values of religious freedom and multi-faith cooperation.
Part of our goal in the Academic Council is to also expand the space of multi-narrative stories. I do a lot of work, for example, with Palestinian Christians, and Christians right now in Gaza, Christians in St. Porphyria's Church, and Christians in the Latin Christian church there, who are suffering greatly because of the war that is happening. And so what does it mean for us to create space that is safe, where there is security and where there is protection, where we can advocate for religious freedom, coming from multiple sectors, practitioners, and also academics. And so that's some of the work we hope to do in the year ahead. We're grateful to be partnering with you.
Reverend Cannon highlighted the Council's aim to support religious freedom through interdisciplinary work and international partnerships, focusing on values like tolerance and resilience. Also on the panel, Dr. Elizabeth Padromo, visiting professor in the International Studies program at Boston College, emphasized the importance of preserving cultural heritage, both tangible sites and intangible traditions, as foundations for community connection and peace. She discussed the value of heritage in fostering cross-generational and cross-gender participation in society, underscoring that cultural memory can help communities process trauma while building hope.
Some of the things that have jumped out as over the last 2 days as part of the Academic Council, the significance of knowledge, how we acquire knowledge, how we share and transmit knowledge, and what we present and what we don't present, what gets said and what doesn't get said. I work on the Eastern Med at the intersection of Orthodox Christianity and Islam, and as somebody who's an Orthodox Christian and also works on Islam, I know oftentimes what is not said is just as important as what is said. So knowledge acquisition, transmission, and in particular for the Academic Council, we want to do good scholarship, good academic research that can lead to smart policy design, good practitioner programming, and also for a younger generation of students, help them understand the pathways they can take out of the academic space into the spaces where we all work today.
Dr. Dennis Hoover from Love Your Neighbor community then spoke about the Council's approach to data and research, focusing on successes rather than failures in religious freedom. Dr. Hoover, who is the editor-in-chief of the Review of Faith and International Affairs, said the Council plans to produce a special journal issue with an emphasis on positive outcomes, mapping influential organizations and understanding conditions that lead to lasting freedom and tolerance. Closing out, Professor Jocelyn Cesari spoke remotely from Israel, emphasizing a non-Western perspective on religious freedom to address structural violence and avoid associating extremism solely with religious identity. Reverend Cannon wrapped up the panel by encouraging attendees to connect the Council with research networks and communities, highlighting the Council's goal of fostering global collaboration in religious freedom advocacy. We're shifting from the Academic Council's exploration of interdisciplinary solutions for religious freedom to a new frontier, corporate engagement. In the last panel, academics discussed the power of research and cross-sector partnerships in promoting cultural understanding and religious freedom worldwide. Now, we turn to the Corporate Council, where industry leaders are exploring how business strategies can directly support these goals.
The relationship between religious freedom and corporate realities exists. There are brilliant people thinking about it, but we haven't linked it to our civil society movement or to our government engagements really well enough at all.
The IRF Secretariat's new corporate panel is chaired by Simran Stoolpanagel, who opened the discussion by expressing that business leaders can influence global norms, foster tolerance, and leverage market research to promote religious freedom. Stoolpanagel shared the journey of Yogi Tea, a company started by his father and some friends and recognized last year as Europe's most faith-friendly company. Who won the award for most faith-friendly company this year? It was Rolls-Royce. I'll leave that for you to research further. In a unique story of resilience and faith, Stoolpanagel shared how Yogi Tea, a small tea company, grew into one of Europe's most faith-friendly corporations with over 100 billion tea bags distributed globally. The company's roots trace back to the discrimination faced by Germans who adopted Eastern religious practices after World War II. Stoolpanagel shared how the company's journey involved overcoming personal obstacles in a society reluctant to embrace diversity. In response, the company began embedding messages of love, peace, and compassion directly into its tea bags, aiming to foster tolerance and understanding one cup at a time. Among the messages like, one way of loving your neighbor is to reassure them, and smiling leads us to peace. In fact, as I record this now, I am sipping on a cup of ginkgo tea by Yogi Tea, and I have a positive message on mine. Now, granted, it's in German, but I did look up what it says, and according to my translation app, my tea bag says, look at your strengths, not your weaknesses. Now, that's a positive advice I'm certainly going to try to take. Yogi Tea's journey of inclusion and resilience was honored last year with the Most Faith-Friendly Company in Europe award, which Stoolpanagel highlighted as a testament to the positive influence businesses can have on society.
But there's many corporations that do this, and some do it way better than Yogi Tea, including the organizations that are represented here. So with that, I wanted to introduce this panel, and we're going to talk about their companies.
Next, Ava Weitzman of the Marriott School of Business shared insights from her 7-year research on embedding religious freedom into corporate strategies. Weitzman argued that businesses act not only as economic entities, but as social institutions capable of promoting peace and stability. Her research revealed that financial and moral motivations drive corporate involvement in religious freedom, which directly supports stable global supply chains. I had the privilege to speak to Weitzman the following day, and she had additional insight into how corporations can positively affect religious freedom building.
Was there a question you were hoping someone would ask you, or an area of the subject that you were hoping to dive into that you didn't get to talk about yet?
Well, I do now.
Yes.
So we talk a lot about the business sector or the economy, and what we're not really thinking about is that behind those big corporations are people who are making decisions. And when they're making decisions to maximize profits, we think about that as sort of this cruel, cold decision. But when you talk to corporate executives, they genuinely believe and understand that what they're trying to do is create value and wealth for the people who have invested in them. And yes, there are wealthy people who invest in corporations, but there are also people like you and me who have investments in those companies that we're counting on, in my case, for...
Oh, please, go ahead. So in your case?
Yeah. So executives and companies are thinking about the people that they serve, and that includes their shareholders who may be wealthy people, and there's a lot of focus on that, right? People who've made wealth through large companies, but there are also people like me who have invested a portion of the money that I make at work in hopes of having a healthy retirement or being able to support my kids' education. And those are the people that they're thinking about when they're trying to make sure that the value of their company remains high. They're thinking about people, and they care about people. And I talk to corporate executives all the time who are like, what can I do to help, right? What can I do to help create more peace, to create more stability, not just for the interests of the company, and it does benefit the company, but also just because they're human beings who care. And one of the challenges is that a lot of times when corporate executives are asking this question, it's because they're hearing about it on the news with the rest of us, and they haven't been on the ground engaged with the government and NGO counterparts who are seeing this coming, who are experiencing this on the ground. And so if we can bring them into dialogue earlier, so that by the time they're asking, what can we do, it's not too late. A lot of the times, by the time a corporate executive is saying, I care about this issue, I'm watching people be displaced, it's too late. And so we want to bring them in a conversation earlier so that they can help with the peace building side of things, creating the stability that reduces the probability of conflict, including religious conflict. So what I'd like to see is that conversation broadening beyond the walls of the company, beyond the executives who are having conversations about whether or not it's worth it to take some of these risks, and reaching out and actually engaging with the religious communities, not only that they hope to represent, but who may be in conflict with them, so that they can use all of the things that they're doing as peacemaking efforts. Efforts to not only represent, but also to create dialogue. And I think that's something that civil society is very good at. And I think corporations can learn from those conversations. And I also think that the religious freedom movement can learn from corporations, can learn about the ways that they think about benefits and risks to the economy in ways that are independent of policy or independent of the kinds of philanthropy and programmatic action that NGOs engage in. So it's just a really different perspective, a different set of tools. And I think it needs to be in conversation with the other tools that are already part of this dialogue.
During the panel, Weitzman also noted that businesses often face ethical challenges, particularly in labor practices. She called for cooperative engagement over punitive measures to foster responsible practices within global supply chains. Love Your Neighbor community has recently launched a new media initiative to broaden conversations between those that believe differently. We know that as a society, we need to work together. And how can we do that if we don't take the time to share and listen to one another? Therefore, we're asking our listeners to like and subscribe to our programs and share it with someone you know who also wants to expand the conversation. Following Weitzman's statements, Ben Christensen, formerly with SAP, then spoke about SAP's integration of faith perspectives into its AI ethics framework. During the pandemic, Christensen introduced a safe space for interfaith dialogue within SAP, which expanded into executive-backed initiatives in AI ethics.
Fairness, accountability, transparency, safety, security, sustainability. Why are those important? That's the language that we are bringing to the business world for responsible AI. That's the interface for religious freedom when it comes here. All right, the examples that we were giving before. You would be surprised, and I hope you feel encouraged, if you could see what I see, how willing and interested corporate executives are to put budgets on not just their own time and resources, but to fund the movements of religious freedom inside their companies. I've seen it at SAP. Why do they do this? Not just because it's nice to have, it helps them be more resilient in the markets, de-risk supply chains, respond with more empathy and agility to regional needs and crises.
SAP's responsible AI framework now prioritizes fairness, accountability, and transparency, as well as tackling potential biases, particularly in financial settings. Christensen explained that this framework, adopted by major corporations, encourages resilience, risk management, and empathy in business practices. Christensen also later told LYNC,
the language that the speakers are using in the religious freedom movement, security, safety, accountability, trust, transparency, those happen to align with the responsible AI principles. So let's just define that for a minute. That's what I wanted to talk about. What does AI and business have to do with religious freedom? And I'll start by defining what businesses are motivated to do when it comes to building competitive and responsible AIs. They're subscribing to principles: fairness, accountability, trust, safety, security, transparency, sustainability. Those are the words which the members of parliament, the civil society, governments, academia, and the religious leaders in these countries are using to describe the social cohesion that is needed. I get so excited about this because in the corporate world, I have seen how businesses are motivated to use that language to drive the next level of their competitive edge, the responsible AI movement.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah. So SAP is one of the world's largest software companies. They are differentiating themselves on how responsible or resilient their AI is. And in a world where an AI is only as good as the data it's trained on, the data set matters. So what data is it being trained on? Well, inside SAP, 100,000 people, employees, large company, right? There's an AI ethics community that helps inform what is the AI that we're developing that corporations will be using. We were able to bring a faith dimension, that is a religious freedom dimension, wisdom of the world's religions dimension, to the AI ethics community. So now there's a faith dimension. This is important because how do you make sure that your AI is going to be reliable and trustworthy? How can you earn the confidence of customers and investors that they should select your product? Because this is business, remember. So we have the opportunity now to interface with that language because the responsible AI principles interface with the language of religious freedom. Not only that, but the wisdom of the world's religions are being prompted to give input, advisory into those. That's just the example from SAP I would give. Here's another example. So the UN just convened an AI advisory. The United Nations Advisory Body on Artificial Intelligence has called for contributions. The AI and Faith Network, what is that? A network of AI professionals from corporations, from academia, from NGOs have come together and made a contribution. So now, and it's been published in the UN AI Advisory Report, there is a clause on the importance of religious freedom, the importance of a wide variety of faiths to make responsible AIs more robust. This is extremely helpful because businesses follow government regulations, especially when it comes to these sustainability topics.
Focusing back to the corporate panel, financial crime and trade finance expert Sam Curtis, who has advised some of the largest banks in the world, emphasized the risk associated with AI models used in financial institutions. Curtis said it was important to understand that in the context which AI is deployed, they are trained on historic data. He explained that AI models, if trained on historical data linked to biased factors such as geography or surnames, could inadvertently encode prejudice. This poses significant human rights risk, especially in areas where bias has historically influenced financial practices. Curtis pointed out that these AI models require robust design and continuous monitoring, as they can develop unexpected bias over time. He stressed the need for rigorous AI model governance to prevent these unintended consequences. And now let's move from the Corporate Council's focus on the role of business in religious freedom to an exciting new development: the unveiling of the IRF Secretariat's Media Council. Leading this initiative is Rachel Miner from Bellwether International, who described the Council's mission to bridge a significant gap between the media and religious freedom sectors, something she emphasized as overdue and essential for addressing global human rights issues.
The International Religious Freedom Media Council has one mission: bridge the divide between the media sector and the religious freedom sector. It needs to be done. It's long overdue. Bellwether is going to chair this council with media experts, not because I'm a media expert, but because I know how to find them. And in our broader work to disrupt the cycle of genocide, working with media is crucial to that larger goal. It's crucial to religious freedom, and this is a contribution that Bellwether is ready to make.
Miner explained that the council, guided by experts, will help members in the religious freedom sector engage with media more effectively, not for organizational promotion, but to highlight critical issues such as religious discrimination and genocide. Miner later expounded more on the impact that media can have in advancing religious freedom and protecting the marginalized.
Governments perpetrate genocide, and they use mass media to put out their messages of propaganda. So during the Rwandan genocide, it was radio stations that aired propaganda from the government that incited the violence, incited these genocidal events. So you've got to have media part of the resistance equation. Media has to know how to push back and hold government accountable. Media has to be truth-seeking and working with communities, and communities need to be empowered to work with media. And all together, that becomes part of the prevention strategy in the long run.
During the panel, Miner shared survey findings showing 80% of sector respondents prioritizing increased media coverage of religious freedom, with 60% focused on connecting to mainstream outlets. An example of the council's potential impact comes from Bellwether's recent success working with the BBC to raise awareness on the Yazidi genocide, which ultimately led to the UK's formal recognition of the tragedy. Miner urged attendees to get involved, inviting them to scan a QR code linking to a survey to gather feedback, subscribe to the Council's newsletter, and upload stories in need of media attention. Miner also mentioned the upcoming release of a comprehensive report by year's end, offering insights and recommendations based on survey data and previous media initiatives. From there, the panel turned to Tom Gallagher, who recounted the inspiration for his documentary on religious pluralism. The documentary is called Amen, Amen, Amin, a story for our times. And his journey began in 2018 after learning that the United Arab Emirates Jewish community would gift a Torah scroll to Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, symbolizing a gesture of gratitude and coexistence. Filming wrapped up in 2021, and the documentary has already premiered in New York and the United Arab Emirates, receiving a warm reception and numerous awards. We'll expound on this conversation in the next panel when we dive more into the film. Wrapping up the media session, Czech Ambassador Robert Rehak stressed the media's powerful role in promoting religious freedom, particularly for individuals facing persecution. He urged support for publicizing the plight of those imprisoned or under threat, noting that media coverage, even in authoritarian regimes, can lead to small but significant changes. And in keeping in theme of the power of utilizing media to tell stories, educate audiences, and spur change, in the final panel of the conference, Dr. Paul Murray, Vice President of Religious Freedom Initiatives at the Global Peace Foundation, and Wade Cusack, CEO of Love Your Neighbor Community, led an open session inviting audience feedback on religious freedom strategies. Murray emphasized the need to monetize efforts for religious freedom to ensure sustained impact. He encouraged the audience to think creatively about funding, such as through memberships and program-based support, noting that while global religious freedom has seen challenges over the last 25 years, the program's gathering aimed to reverse that trend. From the audience, Lauren Hammer, a longtime advocate, highlighted successful models of religious freedom from Ukraine and Northeast Syria, urging analysis of these examples as frameworks for other regions. In response, Wade Cusack shared insights on promoting pluralistic virtues, suggesting cross-cultural religious literacy as a foundational strategy to understand and respect diverse beliefs. He provided an example of relationship building between Christian converts and imams in Eurasia, showing how mutual understanding reduced tensions. Cusack mentioned a new religious literacy course for Kazakh government officials, which he hopes will expand to formal education. Questions from the audience continued and included a focus on protection for converts and the plight of religiously persecuted refugees. This subject was raised by Henrietta Blyth, CEO of Open Doors UK and Ireland. Dr. Murray responded by pointing to the potential of international religious roundtables for addressing these issues, while Cusack stressed the importance of both legal protections and societal acceptance to make progress for religious converts. As the conference wrapped up, Greg Mitchell and Nadine Mayenza noted the importance of ongoing collaboration, emphasizing that global religious freedom requires not only advocacy, but sustained partnership and support for grassroots efforts worldwide. Following, attendees watched the screening of Amen, Amen, Amin, a story of our times, presented by the Religion Media Foundation. The film, directed by Gallagher, chronicles the historic gift of a Torah scroll given by the Jewish community in the United Arab Emirates and presented to His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi. as a symbol of gratitude for fostering religious tolerance. This Torah that was given in 2019 is hand-scribed and the first in the Gulf in nearly a century and signifies a unique bond between Jewish and Muslim communities in a region where such alliances are rare. The story highlights the United Arab Emirates' efforts to promote religious freedom and is part of the Abrahamic Family House Initiative, which brings together a mosque, church, and synagogue on a single site. In a discussion following the film, Gallagher and His Excellency Sheikh Mahfoud al-Bin Bayas spoke on the enduring courage needed for religious freedom. Sheikh al-Mahfoud recounted his father's steadfast commitment to peace and resilience against extremism, sharing a story from 1999 when his father faced backlash for a photo with Sheikh Hamza Yusuf at Berkeley. Despite threats, his father published the image, drawing attention from extremists, including ISIS, who even targeted his family. Sheikh al-Mahfoud said that when asked if he was fearful, his father expressed that his work's impact threatened extremists more than their threats affected him.
So, but I asked my dad, you never get scared? He said, why I have to be scared? I said, because they threat us. He said, who cares? But my work is to threaten them more than what they threaten me by to do. So I'm going to continue working. So we kept working, and we're still working until today. So we're not going to give up. As I said, this mission is from cradle to the grave.
Concluding with an inspiring message, Sheikh al-Mahfoud urged the audience to pursue peace with open hearts, emphasizing that protection comes from God. He highlighted his father's dedication to promoting peace at age 90, underscoring that the journey to true peace begins with kindness, unity, and support from one another. And with that inspiring message on courage and unity, the evening transitioned to a celebration of dedication in the ongoing fight for religious freedom. The celebration included an awards dinner where several leaders were honored for their work. Those recipients were Ava Weitzman, who I spoke about when we talked about the IRF Secretariat's new corporate council. She won the Freedom of Religious Belief Corporate Leadership Award. The other award recipients we mentioned in part 1 of this special episode series, starting with Fernanda Samartin Carasso, who won the Builder of Social Cohesion and Resilience Award, and Dr. John Azuma, Ghanaian professor and executive director of the Sana Institute. He won the Builder of Social Cohesion and Resilience Award, and then receiving the Faith Institutional Leadership Awards were Imams Bijigit Korshev, representing the Spiritual Administration of Muslims of Kazakhstan, and Imam Shovkat Ismailov, representing the Muslim Board of Uzbekistan. With a special treat, a violinist charmed the audience and in a heartwarming moment surprised IRF Secretariat volunteer Carolina Francisci with a rendition of Happy Birthday. Guests enjoyed fellowship with faith leaders from around the world, celebrating their shared commitment to peace and mutual respect. What a way to wrap up a very special program in Berlin. I'm going to close out our time for now, but if you want to hear bonus content from our interviews, including testimonials from the Berlin Civil Society program, stick around. You've been listening to a special edition of LYNC Radio, a Love Your Neighbor community update. Just a quick reminder that we depend on listeners like you to like, subscribe, and share this program. If this program has given value to you today, please take this quick and simple action. None of us can do this work alone, but we are strong together. I'm Jessica Eturralde. Thanks for listening. Up next, we have the lightning round, which includes thoughts from attendees of the program, starting with attendee Nezamul Hassan. Hassan is the director of the Global Innovation and Development Group. He had this to say about attending the program.
I think this is a very important event. It's a very necessary event, an event that focuses on pluralism is the ask of our age, our time of this time. And the approach the event organizer are moving is a fabulous approach for an up to down and down to up approach is moving on. And also the roundtable concept, I think is a very important concept. Sometimes we think we know the other, but in reality it is important to hear from the other before we make any judgment. So the roundtable approach, including the regional and the local people into the roundtable and discussing it, and from there identifying the common approach for a common goal for peace and humanity of the world. I think that's a fabulous thing, and the most important thing I would say is this approach should be moving forward and expanding forward and bringing gender equality, generation gap management, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
More from Ben Christensen.
We're in Berlin. We've had speakers from all over talk about the religious freedom issues that are being faced, what can be done to solve it. I come here because I'm motivated by religious freedom. I thought that this was a given growing up in the USA. Religious freedom is something that people fought for and we have achieved. But I've been learning that it can go away. In the corporate world, I was taught that religion and politics should not be spoken of in the company. Then I started an organization that overtly talked about religious issues, and it was welcomed and it was needed. Here in Berlin, we've heard outside the corporate world how needed it is as well. Together we have an opportunity to advance the way we approach that for the needs that are happening around the world. I get really encouraged to see other people motivated by the cause of religious freedom, especially when they're from different beliefs. There is a great opportunity of feeling belonging in diversity.
And Ava Weitzel had this to add.
That's what we're all here for. We're all here for the person who wants to express their entire self, their whole soul in every aspect of their life. They want to have a place to live, a place to worship, and a place to work. And I feel like one of the pieces that the Corporate Council really contributes is focusing on that last piece. How do we help provide stability at work for people? How do we provide opportunities for people to express themselves at work? How do we provide a way for people to build their lives and their souls even at work? And I think the Corporate Council can contribute to that, especially by focusing on this issue of religious freedom and making sure that people are free not only at work, but also in the marketplace and in the ways that the economy contributes to the stability that reduces religious conflict.
Special comments from Guram Imerashvili.
The importance of this kind of conferences, platforms are very crucial for actually my country's part of the world, because we have quite difficult legacy from the Soviet regimes, where different opinion very often is not accepted so easy. Different parts of society have some issues to accept different opinions. And I think LYNC and IRF creating this kind of platforms are doing very important job for our region and post-Soviet countries. According to my belief, the strongest weapon is the word. If there is no chance to speak words, then muscles or even missiles are taking actions. So it's better always to have a dialogue, to be ready to listen to different opinion. And the practices show me and the experience that when we find strength to sit around the same table, even if we belong to different religions and parts of society, we as a human and maybe as a believers have much more in common than differences. And the values are the same, and goals are the same, and missions.
More insights from Professor Pavel Bargar.
So this whole conference, this whole meeting is very interesting for me, very much different to what I'm used to as academic. So in particular, the corporate session today and the whole world of business in relation to religion and the freedom of religion, that's a big eye-opener for me. The whole area of where, in what areas religion can have impact in our lives. And it's also wonderful to see that in how many different actors in public life, including NGOs, business as I mentioned, but also policy-making organizations and various faith communities and organizations are working and can work together to promote religious freedom. I would be eager to hear from everyone. I would like to see even more people coming to this joint project and this joint endeavor because really there is such a variety of different faith communities, different traditions, people with different life experiences and different stories to come and share so that we can enrich each other. So if more than really a question, is just like appeal to different people and different communities to join this very important initiative.
Some additional comments from LYNC's representative to Kazakhstan, Arman Arimbayev.
Absolutely great conference, absolutely great event where we could discuss different topics related to decreasing the level of radicalization or misuse of religion as in the society. And I was so happy to represent Christian Church from Kazakhstan here at this wonderful event. What I like most of this event was that people represented here so many different agencies and different parts and sides of the society.
And lastly, some important words from Moldova's former member of parliament and president of the European Christian Political Movement of Moldova, Valero Ghiletski.
Well, one thing that I would like to say is that these kind of events, they are very important. They are very helpful. They help us build a good network. They help us to share good experiences. I think this is very important, especially in our part of the world. And when I say our part of the world, I mean Eastern Europe, but I saw also people from other former Soviet countries. So coming from a communist regime in the past, I think learning all of this is very helpful and important to build a good future for our countries.